To get one last class of Torah. So I'll just mention before we officially begin, I finally got my hands on a book I've been looking for years. The most authoritative book modernly written on the 10 lost tribes. We have discussed this in previous years, bits and pieces, but now I have the full book. So I'm in the middle of reading it. When I'm done, I'm going to share with you guys some of the conclusions of it. Maybe we'll do a whole class on it.
It's in Hebrew?
The book is in Hebrew, yeah.
I love the book.
Yeah, he actually is a fellow who lived in Kiryat Shmona who wrote it. He passed away a few years ago.
Oh.
Okay, so we're going to be doing in the next few classes. We have, I think it's four classes in Elul, if I'm not mistaken. No, maybe it's three. Okay, whatever it is. We're going to focus on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Sukkot laws, we're not going to do Tuesday nights, as I mentioned, we're going to do on Sunday morning, okay? That's starting next week already, Sunday, we're doing Sukkot. So here we're going to be focusing on the full breadth of the laws of Rosh Hashanah. As you see, we have here a 350 page book.
The Sunday class and the Tuesday class is a combined class.
Sometimes for Yom Tovim, we combine. Well, it's not combined. It's Sukkot.
It's the same class.
It's the same style because we don't have enough time. In previous years we haven't been able to do Sukkot because there was no time to do it. So this year we're just going to do it on Sunday. Okay. So what we're going to be doing today, we're going to review the laws and customs of Elul, and begin the laws of davening of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah contains a number of sections. It contains a discussion, of course, of the month of Elul, which is going to be this class, and we'll do one more class right before Slichos to discuss Slichos. We're not going to do that now. Then we have a whole class on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Just Erev Rosh Hashanah is a whole list of different customs, Taras Nadarim, etc., etc., etc. Then we have the davening Rosh Hashanah, which is its own subject. And we have the meals of Rosh Hashanah, which is its own subject. And we have blowing shofar, which is many subjects within a subject. There's many details of blowing shofar, but since most of you, maybe all of you, are going to be yotze with somebody not a Baal Tekeah, so the halachas are more pertinent halacha l'maisa for them to know than for the listeners. But we're going to try to get done as much as we can. Okay, let's begin with a little divrei chassidus for the introduction to the month of Elul. I think it's most fitting in the Arizal city to begin with what he described Elul as. So there are a number of acronyms that the name Elul stands for. We discussed this in Shabbos' the Torah class. And one of them, of course, the most famous one being Ani L'Devi V'Devi, but there's another one, which the Arizal composed, or thought of, which is Ina L'Yadei V'Samti Lach. Now, what does this mean? So this is taken from a pasuk that's discussing Ari Miklat. And the Arizal says like this. Right, let me first explain the pasuk. The pasuk says that if somebody kills someone inadvertently, accidentally, meaning it didn't intend to kill him, it wasn't premeditated, and the Torah tells him, "In liyadei, I am preparing for you a place for you to take refuge from the Goel Adam, the Samti Lach, and you should go there to take refuge." Now, how does that, in Ir Milka, connect with the month of Elul? With the month of Elul, with the Rashi Tables. So to understand that, we have to first explain a little bit about what happens with a inadvertent murder. So, chas v'shalom, chas v'leila, we should never know of such things. If somebody got into an accident and he was negligent, he was talking on the phone, wasn't paying attention, never. Smashed into someone and killed a Jew. Happens. Or somebody left a kid in their car and didn't, even if it's their own kid or someone else's kid, it's murder, inadvertent. So such a person has to be goylet in Ir Miklat. What happens in Ir Miklat that suddenly he needs to go there and it protects him? So the law is that so long as he is not in an Ir Miklat, there is permission and a mitzvah upon the relatives of the victim to no more or no less kill him in return. I know this sounds strange in today's society. What? He didn't mean to do it. It was an accident. In fact, today we have, I think, the more common philosophy that's taken is one of love. Embrace him, forgive him, come to peace with it by doing that. Many have done that I know. But that's not the Torah's philosophy. The Torah's philosophy is not to embrace the murderer of your relative, but rather to give him the same fate. That's the mitzvah negayel adam. The Rebbe explains that today, why do we see people don't do it? Because today, just like we're in gullus and our emotions are not kedusha and many other things, so too in this as well. We're lacking the kedusha in our souls to feel the need to want to take this guy's life in exchange for what he did. So we don't care to do it. And not only that, we may even have feelings of let's embrace him, let's accept him and forgive him in order to bring closure. The problem is that doesn't bring closure to the victim's soul. Now, Rizal explains, when a person is murdered, as opposed to dies naturally, when a person is murdered, his soul finds no rest until the perpetrator is given justice. And that is the job of the relatives. Just like a relative, if a relative of somebody is in a situation that he's in need of charity, every relative, if it has a responsibility, if they can afford it, to support that. And they have a priority in doing so over anyone else. So too, it is regarding this. Their relative is here suffering, his soul is suffering and can rest in peace, so you have to go and avenge the death. The Ir Miklat. What does the Ir Miklat do? The Arizal explains. The Ir Miklat is a place where God shines his 13 attributes of mercy. God shining his 13 attributes of mercy in this city of refuge, it allows even a murderer, a virgin murderer, and a person who murdered premeditatedly, then it's a different story. But a person who did b'shogeg, then he's able to seek refuge there, and God accepts even him. Meaning even his big sin, God is able to accept, and that's why such a place is considered a miklat, is considered that it's a refuge from the Goyal Adam. The Rizal says that the same thing applies during the year, and the same thing applies spiritually towards sin. The same way physically a person can kill someone, so too spiritually. Every single sin, the Rizal says, of a sin, it states in the verse in Bereshis, Sheifich dam ha'adam ba'adam, pouring man's blood in man. Now what does that mean? Linguistically, it makes no sense. You spilled man's blood. I mean, you spilled man's blood in man. The Rizal says it's referring to Averos and the spiritual effect of a sin. Just like physically, man has blood, and blood carries life force, vitality, energy, the soul. So too spiritually, every mitzvah and Aveira is connected with the channels of Elikus, of godly energy in Atzilus. A mitzvah draws it down. And Aveira not only plugs it up, but it actually punctures it like a vein being punctured and causes the godly blood and energy to enter into Adam Dibriya. So that's Sheifich Dam Adam. A sin pours the blood of supernal man, Ba'adam Dibliya, into lower man, man of evil. And when that happens, there's a mitzvah on the Goyal Hadam to take care of some business from the guy who did the sin. Now, who's the Goyal Hadam of Hashem? All of the victims. There's many victims to a sin. The godly light that was meant to go towards such a B, C worth of angels are now no longer going to them, and just the opposite, they're getting rationed foods. So when they know it's because of this guy sin that I'm not getting my portion of the likus this morning, they're not going to sit back with folded arms and do nothing. That's what Pirkei Avos says. A sin creates a kateger. A sin creates a persecuting angel. It's not a new angel. The angel was always there. It's the same angel that existed already, and now he wants to get retribution. So it says the Arizal, just like God created a physical city for the physical inadvertent murderer, so too God created a time zone of 1 month in the year where a Jew is able to go into the miklat, into the state of refuge from the Goyal Hadam, and be saved from him forever. Now what is it, just to live and breathe during Elul? I mean, that's quite easy to do. Everybody's doing that. But what do you have to do? So the Arizal here says that this refers to the study of Torah in Elul. What is the miklat in Elul? It's the study of Torah. In other words, the same way Hashem created the ability for you to travel to the city of refuge, which Tzfat is one of them, by the way. We're actually in it right now. Because other parts of Tzfat are not part of the old city. It may not have the Yidgin, just like Canaan. Every time you go in and out of Canaan throughout the year, you should pay attention.
The study of Torah is the whole year. It's a whole year.
You're probably leaving the Yidgin Midas Harachim zone. It probably begins somewhere around the Chodesh Yerushalayim. You have to ask the local Kabbalists.
Not one of the 48 Levine cities, but the actual.
On the Aramiklet, yes.
Tzfat?
Well, it could be the other cities also have some sort of Yigum and Sarachmas. There are also forms of Aramiklet. But Tzfat is one of the main 6 Aramiklets.
The study of Torah is the whole year.
So once, right. But,
So why Elul?
So too, you have many cities exist, but only certain cities were granted city of refuge statuses. And so too, only certain months were granted that Torah learning can have the status to save from the Goel Adam. And this is the month of Elul, where Jews are able to run away to the city of Torah study. And that's why it was a custom that people in the month of Elul, we mentioned this, I think, on Sunday, would close their books. Yeshiva students would close their books and study Musar and be involved in Avodas HaTfilah more. And Balabatim who spent their time in business would close their businesses and spend time in the Beis HaMedrash. Okay. That's our introduction, and therefore, as the Rebbe concludes this talk, the Rebbe says that every Jew should know, and this should be publicized, that God is giving us 29/30 days, 29/30 days, because if you count the first day of Elul, Rosh Chodesh, that you're able to run away from the Goel Adam and Pashat start a new page for the coming year.
That was the Rebbe's first mitzvah.
Yes, that's what they say. Yes. I don't know what that means exactly, because the Rebbe can't give many directives.
He did it for everybody.
Right, but the Rebbe said many things for everybody, starting from like the first Sikha. So I've heard that many times before, but I'm not exactly sure or understand how that fits in factually. Anyway, okay, but yes.
So which part of that was the Arizal? Which part was that?
The whole thing was the Arizal.
The whole thing was that.
Yeah, the whole Shefet Lanam Adam, Noam Torah, it's all that reason. It's his Rashi Tevis. Okay, let's begin with Minhagim and Hagis, halachas that apply to the month of Elul. Generally, we avoid singing the special nigun of Daled Bavas of the Alter Rebbe, with exception to the opportune times that are given for it, such as on the Yantif, Chasana, etc. One of the exceptions is the month of Elul. Rabbi writes that throughout the month of Elul, it's permitted to sing the Alter Rebbe's nigun, especially during davening, to daven with it. Now, just to get a little bit of perspective of what this means, so we don't take this like, what is this? I've never heard of such a thing, that you have permission to hear a nigun or sing a nigun. You listen whenever you want. A nigun composed by a tzaddik like the Alter Rebbe, especially nigun Daled Bavas, has a direct connection with his soul. And when we sing this nigun, we connect with him and summon him to come. Now, if we were the Alter Rebbe, we wouldn't want to be bothered every single day by all of his chassidim singing his nigun to come down. There's a lot of things to do upstairs in Gan Eden. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe gave the tradition is that there's specific days that we can use this nigun to exact the keiches that the Alter Rebbe invested into it. But one of those times is throughout the entire month of Elul, we have this opportunity available to us. The Rebbe states that in the month of Elul, every man and woman is to be particular to not pass even one day with studying something relating to Elul, whether the relevant laws or chassidus dealing with it. There's a very good English sefer called Days of Awe, Days of Joy. It's a great sefer to learn. Yes. Great sefer to learn during this month. Blowing the shofar. Blowing of the shofar is an Ashkenazi custom that's first recorded in the Rosh, famous Ashkenazi Rish. The difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim in this regard is that Sephardim, when Elul comes in, they recite slichas for the entire month. That is their way of getting atonement and arousing tshuva. The Ramah writes that Ashkenazim are not accustomed like this, meaning they're not accustomed to say slichas, and rather they just blow shofar. You can understand that in order for us to be Yetze, our minhag, because the Sephardim are saying slichas at 4 o'clock in the morning for a whole month, and we're just listening to Shofar for 2 seconds, it has to be something more, something resultant that has to come out of the Shofar blowing for us to be able to justify not doing slichas. So the message of the Shofar is really the most important thing, and that is a reminder of tshuva, of repentance. There's also a few other reasons recorded. First, blowing shofar in Elul is a medrash recorded that it was actually done in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. And so when Moshe Rabbeinu went up for the 3rd time to receive the luchas, he went up when? On Lamed, Menachem, Lamed or Aleph, Machlekes. But the point is, when he went up, or Aleph, when he went up, they didn't want to make the same mistake again. They had a calculation mistake the last time. People thought he went up yesterday, he went up today. There was a lot of fake news running around back then. Maybe CNN reported back then. I have no idea. Right? Yes, I said Machlekes if it was Aleph Elul or Lamed Menachem. So in order to so that everybody would know, they blew the shofar. They blew the shofar that day, so everyone in the Machna would know. Moshe Elul Marim, start your calculation now, and don't make a mistake again and make a golden calf. And it says there in the Medrash that from that day and on, they were matakin to blow shofar every Chodesh Elul to arouse the Jewish people in Shuvah. So the Ashkenazi custom is actually a Medrash written thousands of years ago in Tanoach times. But nonetheless, it remains that this is only an Ashkenazi custom. Sephardim, they do it in Slichas, they do it, but not as part of Daven. There's machlekes in the Rishonim regarding how many blows you have to blow whenever you blow for non-obligatory purposes. For example, the Bandavel. Some say, so everyone is in agreement that today we don't know what's the correct trua is. Right? Biblically, you have to blow tekiah, trua, tekiah 3 times. That's it. We're in agreement that we don't know today what it is. So therefore, you have to do all the different substitutes. Shvarim trua, shvarim trua, etc. The question is, do you have to do one set of each, or can you just do a single set of tekiah, shvarim trua, tekiah? Because in essence, it technically contains all the sounds. So this is a machlekes. Some say you suffice to do just one set of 4 sounds. Others say no, you should do 10 sounds. Practically, the Chabad custom is like the latter approach, and that's why after davening we blow all 10 sounds. Tashat, tashat, tarat. Other communities, however, are accustomed like the first approach, and they only blow 4 sounds. They just blow tashat, and that's it. So the little bit of a minhag of Ashkenaz that they have, even that they abridged. Even that became abridged. There's no obligation to blow shofar at home. This mitzvah is specifically by the congregation, by a minyan, after davening. Nonetheless, it's a good thing. The Rebbe blew at home for his wife, and then they say it went actually very well as opposed to Rosh Hashanah itself, and it was very difficult for the Rebbe to blow. People barely heard the Rebbe's tekiah shofar. Rosh Hashanah. But during the year, on Elul, the Rebbe blew very well. That's what the Mashpakim say.
Why couldn't they hear well on Rosh Hashanah?
Why? Reuven Dunan said it like this: if a person my size was sitting in the Rebbe shofar, would you be able to blow it? Reuven Dunan, you know Reuven Dunan? He was a very heavy fellow from Haifa. So he answered by saying, if a person like me was sitting inside the shofar, would you be able to blow well? The point is that on Rosh Hashanah he's carrying the Meshagas, the Averis of all Klal Yisrael, has to go through all the persecutions. It's brought in Sfarim, in Rishonim, that there's Malachim, persecuting angels, are trying to prevent the shofar blows from working, from going up. It's not simple. It's not like Elul. Elul is practice. It doesn't count. Shana counts. So the Rebbe needs to be mamashik down for the whole Gans Klal Yisrael. Of course, there's going to be setbacks in it. When one famous Rosh Hashiva went afterwards to blow shofar for himself, because he claimed, I couldn't hear. I couldn't hear the Rebbe shofar. When people found out that he did it, they gave him a Chassidish mashkanta, what they call it. We'll leave it at that. Those who understand. They weren't very happy that he did that. Okay. Okay, the 3 chapters of Tehillim, it's pretty straightforward. We have a tradition from the Baal Shem Tov, from Achia Shileni. We read it recently in Ayam Yayim, and we read 3 chapters a day. This means that in addition to all other Tehillim cycles that we may have, we read specifically 3 chapters, nothing before, nothing after, just a set of 3. As this combination of 3 a day, going in that order, has a special effect that was received from the tradition of Baal Shem Tov. We say it after the daily Tehillim. So first say the Tehillim, and then we say the 3 chapters of the day. If you missed a day, you first say today's, and then you make up whatever day you missed. It's recorded in the Maril and brought in the Paiskim that during the month of Elul, whenever you write a letter to an individual or an email, then you should begin or end, and the Rebbe's custom was to end, with a ksiva b'chasima title. In other words, there is an obligation to bless a fellow Jew before you part with them, or when you are writing a letter, and tell them ksiva b'chasima title during this month. As the voice, the speech of a Jew has effect and can affect to tilt his merits up in heaven, and that God, just like the Jewish people are blessing him, God himself chooses likewise to bless him. It's like parents. When parents see their kids fighting, what do they get upset at? They just get upset at both kids. When they see the kids trying to protect each other, and it brings them nachas, and maybe they forgive the whole case. Shuvah Cheshbon Nefesh. During the month of Elul, it's recorded in many Sifra Ma'amarim. There's a time that the Jews do an accounting of the soul in Torah, Tefillah, and Gemilas Chasadim. The Rebbe Rayatz writes that the main time of Cheshbon Nefesh is by Shachris and when you go to sleep, prior to going to sleep. Those are the main times. We increase it's stuck in Chodesh Elul. That's one of the Rashi Tevis. Ish Le'eu Matanis Lavyenim, and increasing in stock is part of the acts that merit us into being written in Sefer HaChaim. The Pri Chadash was a custom. He was the Rabbi of Yerushalayim in the 1700s to distribute Mishloach Manas and Matanas Lavyenim just like Purim on Erev Rosh Hashanah. He did this in order to fulfill this Rashi Tevis, Ish L'Re'eu Matanas Lavyenim. Checking mezuzahs and tefillin. This was actually today's halacha. Min adin, a person is not required to check his tefillin that he wears daily ever. You never have to check your tefillin. Mezuzahs, min adin, you only have to check them once every 3.5 years if they belong to a private individual, or if they belong to the public, like mezuzahs of, I don't know, maybe here in Tzfat to have some public mezuzahs, or of a shul that's not privately owned, a shul that belongs to the public, then it only needs to be checked once every 25 years. Nonetheless, despite this, the Mat Ephraim, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and others bring down that meticulous men are careful to check their mezuzahs and tefillin annually, once a year. This is called Bedek Habayis. They check their mitzvahs to make sure the mitzvahs are okay. Now, let's just give a little background on this. Why, min adin, do you not have to check, let's say, tefillin ever, and mezuzahs only once every 3.5 years? So we have a rule in Torah called Cheskas Kashrus, which means simply innocent till proven guilty. Innocent till proven guilty. So if I put in a kosher parsha into my mezuzah, and a kosher parshas into my tefillin, then I have no if nothing happened to give a reusa, to give a negative reason of why I should suspect that it has become not kosher, then I don't assume it has just because I assume, because a long time has passed. And therefore technically remains kosher even for many generations. The Gemara brings that Hillel said, I am wearing the tefillin of my great-great-grandfather. It's never been checked before, since he wore it. With mezuzahs, however, since it's found on a wall, and walls, as we know, collect moisture, it's possible that within 3.5 years, that letters can begin fading, or you can have a loss of the kaitzim, of some of the yuds, and then it becomes possible. It's fixable, but it's possible until it's fixed. So therefore, they said by mezuzahs, there's a greater chance of erosion every 3.5 years. But tefillin, when you wear it every day, we don't see any reason why you should. If it fell in a river, if it stayed outside in the sun for 2 days, fine. But otherwise, there's nothing that we can find to suspect. Then why do we say that the Matei Ephraim and others say, and the Rebbe suggested this throughout his years to check, that tefillin and mezuzah as often as possible, well, at least once a year, not more often, but at least once a year. If in adin it's kosher, what are you going to gain? In fact, you're just taking a chance of losing out. The Torah says, Shulchan Aruch says, my tefillin are kosher, cheskas kashrus, because they were put in kosher. If you go now and send it to the sefer to check, and he opens it up and finds it pasul, you just shot yourself in the leg. You didn't have to do that. You could have had it stay the whole time, and it's a cheskas kashrus. It would have been assumed to be kosher, and ignorant is bliss, because you didn't have to check it. It was kosher when I put it in. I don't have to check it. So something here needs explanation. Why do we check it? What does it do for us? So the answer is as follows. There's two aspects in a mitzvah or lack thereof. When a person doesn't do a mitzvah, so A, he has lost whatever effect the mitzvah has, and B, he has rebelled against God. He's transgressed God's command. So if a person doesn't check his tefillin or mezuzah within the time that he doesn't have to, let's say tefillin forever, mezuzah for 3.5 years, God's not going to blame him up in heaven and say, hey, you put on pasul tefillin because he was allowed to. He had cheskas kashrus. So he's not going to get punished putting on pasul tefillin. But don't expect him to receive the hamshachas that kosher tefillin give. No one's going to blame you for waking up late, not having time to take a coffee. But you didn't have the coffee. The caffeine isn't in your system. Being blamed and not being blamed doesn't change the fact that you didn't receive the effect. So that's why they push that it's true. You're right. It's possible that the tefillin are still kosher. But nonetheless, if the tefillin aren't kosher, yes, you're not being blamed. We won't say it's a bracha levatala. But nonetheless, the effect of the tefillin isn't working. And therefore, and that's why the Rebbe pushed all the time to get it checked, because the positive effect of it is dependent on the kashrus. And that's why specifically during Elul, we want to make sure we enter into the new year with a fresh cup, with a shal rosh that's checked, with a fresh heart, a shal yad that's checked, and a fresh home, the mezuzah that are checked. I publicized today a list of things that you have to be careful in when you come to send your mezuzahs and tefillin for checking. We start off with the basics. Just because someone publicizes that they check tefillin and mezuzahs doesn't mean that doesn't mean that they're qualified to do so. What does qualified mean? So on a very basic level, qualified means that they have learned hilchos stam and they promote themselves as people who know how to check. But what qualified really means is someone who has gone through testing of hilchos stam, as well as testing to be a magia. There's two different levels in Tzfat. One is to be a sefer, and the second is to be an editor. And an editor needs to go through more thorough testing than does a regular sefer. And therefore, someone who only has certification to be a sefer but not to be a magia, he can technically check it. It's not possible. But I'm just saying, if you want to get the best for your money, if you want to make sure that you're getting it top notch, then go to someone who's qualified, go to someone who's certified, someone who did the work. Daruch HaShulchan writes regarding doctors the following. Back in the day, there was no such thing as certification to be a doctor. Today, if I start practicing medicine, I can be without a license. I can be put in jail. I can be sued, put in jail, so on and so forth. Because you have to go through the system in order to filter out all of these quacks that try to make believe they're doctors and they're healing people. That's why there's a system. Aruch Shulchan writes that before the system was created, then according to Halacha, doctors, anyone who is professed to study and practice medicine. There was no system of certification. Even in his time, when they began certifying doctors in his country, he was from Nevada, from Europe, he said that once this has been implemented, you're now allowed to go to anyone who's not certified as a doctor in the country. And we're going to use the same thing regarding stam. Once it became accepted to start giving out certification for a Magia, it's proper for the people to start demanding that and start asking for it. So first step is when you want to find someone to check your tefillin and mezuzahs, is to make sure that he's properly qualified. He says, no, I'm a sefer, I never did a course of Haggah. You tell him, okay, no problem. And you go look for somebody else. And when he hears that people won't go to him, he'll do the proper work, and he'll get himself certified if he wants to be a professional Magia. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that when a person is sending in Haggah, you want to make sure that the job is going to be properly done. I'll give an example by tefillin. Not all Magiyim of tefillin make sure to check the external parts of the tefillin for kashrus. Sometimes they just open it up, they check the parshas, that's the main thing, and the parshas are kosher, tell you everything's fine. But they don't bother taking out straps, measuring them, making sure they have the correct measurement. I'll give an example. You can all do this now when you go home. You can check this on your own film to make sure it's kosher. It often happens, especially in hot areas with global warming. When you sweat a lot, sweat enters into the leather, and it causes the leather to constrict inwards. And slowly, day after day, year after year, the leather begins to become more and more narrow in the area of the straps at the head, specifically here. And if it became narrow enough that it's no longer 1 centimeter in width, it's possible. Yeah, between 9 and 9 centimeters is b'diavad, but below 9 is possible.
9 millimeters?
9 millimeters, yes. 1 centimeter, 9 millimeters. Meaning 1 centimeter is the chatchila, 9 millimeters is b'diavad, and below 9 it's possible.
Yeah.
So not always does the sefer think of checking this. Also, the batim. Sometimes the sweat causes that the bias begins losing shape. Now, if he doesn't pay attention to that, and he takes out the parchment, and he checks it, and he says, beautiful ksav, mohoder min ha-mohoder, alter Rebbe, mamish, beautiful. And he didn't bother looking and paying attention that the sewing of the gidim on the bottom of the bias is crooked because of the sweat of the years. The tefillin shreish is possible. What are you talking about? So now, I'm telling you, you can do this yourself, this check, but they're supposed to be the professionals, and the Magiyim do learn this. So therefore, you should explicitly tell them, please check everything. Make sure the straps are good. Tell them, I'm a total Aretz. Make sure everything's good. Check everything that's mahal. Make sure the bottom is good, make sure the straps are good, etc., etc. Let's pull out the list we went through. Another thing that's advised is to try to send it in different years to different people. Not to send it to the same person every single year. The reason is because if that person has something that he is limited in, doesn't know to check for, either due to lack of knowledge or just not used to doing it, then you'll try to cover your bases with somebody else. This is often done bichlal in Stam, that it's sent to 2 magiyim, 2 different people, before they sell it to you. So the same way they send it to 2 different people to check, and they don't send it to the same person twice, they want to have someone else recheck his work. So too, it's a good idea. It's not a must. It's kosher, no matter how you do it. It's a good idea to cover your bases, to send it to a different magia, not to send it to the same magia annually. Regarding mezuzahs, so the few things that we have to keep in mind when we take off the mezuzahs when we're having them checked. Number 1, there is no source, and it's not necessary to keep by such a custom that is sourceless. You can't remove the mezuzah of your front door if you remove the other mezuzahs. You can remove the other mezuzahs. You can remove all the mezuzahs of the house simultaneously and send them all for bedikah. Now, the fact that your house is now going to remain without mezuzahs, and you're not allowed to live in a house without a mezuzah, that's the halacha. You can't live in a house with mezuzah. The poskim write that since you're taking it off for the sake of the mitzvah of checking them, therefore you have the mitzvah fulfilled, you have the protection fulfilled, and it's not a problem. You don't have to go to a Tzemach and get Tzemach mezuzahs. Your house can remain without mezuzahs for that period of time until it is checked. Now, obviously, it's better for him not to spend weeks checking it, but nonetheless, it's okay. Now, is there an advantage of getting same-day checking? The advantage is obviously because your house has less time than it is without a mezuzah. However, sometimes the disadvantage is as follows. You have to understand, especially in Elul, the people who work in Hagah, even those who have certification, are qualified. They often have a lot of omus. They have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of people gave them work, and it's all about speed. Anyone who works in editing, I work in editing, you work in editing. Anyone who works in editing knows that even after you've edited an article or a book, you always afterwards see, how did I miss that? How did I miss that? And it usually happens because when you're spending a long time on a file, even professional editors, there's like a blind eye. I don't know how to call it, but there's like a blind eye that prevents you from being able to see it. You're just not able to see it. And so what happens is that when they're going through very quickly all the different parachutes that you got that day to check, especially if everyone wants same-day return, it sometimes can sabotage the quality of the job. And therefore, if the person tells you, listen, I can do it in 3 days, it's going to be slower, more thorough, it's better to do it that way than to do a quick one-day glance that may not do the job. I'll give you a Ma'aser Shahaya in the city. This story occurred in the city of the Munkacher. The Munkacher Rebbe had a Sefer Torah that he had written on his behalf that was very dear to him, very special to him. And it was the most Mahuda of Mahuda. And he had it checked by none less than 30 Magim, 30 professional editors. Checked the Sefer Torah. It was kosher, it was Mahadra. He then heard that a world-renowned Magia was coming to Munkash. World-renowned, top person in the world that's known in Haggadah. And he asked him if he can do it as well, the 31st. And he said, of course, for the Munkash Rebbe. And he sat and he went through the whole Sefer Torah. And it didn't take very long when he didn't have to go through the whole Sefer Torah until he said, I'm sorry to tell you, Sefer Torah is possible. Munkacher Rebbe was shocked. 30 Magim. He says, what's possible? He says there's 2 words that were interchanged. 2 words that were interchanged. So he wanted to check something out. Yeah. He took 3 of his Magim, a part of the 30, and he had them review the whole Sefer Torah again. None of them found it. He told them, there's a soul here, find it, none of them. He then had them tell him which Sefer it was in, the Sefer Shmos. They again reviewed the whole Sefer Shmos, they couldn't find it. He told them which parasha it was in, Parashat B'Shalach. They reviewed the whole B'Shalach, they couldn't find it. They couldn't find the error. Until the Sefer said, listen, he opened it up and he showed them that in the pasuk of Mikdash Adni Kenin Yadecha, there was a word of Yud-Kei, Vav-Kei, and Adni that were interchanged. It was something that you can not think about, not notice, because it's pronounced the same way. You pronounce the words the same way, but this is just an example of where you may not pick something up. This is, by the way, where computer checking comes in and really covers the human error aspect. And that's why it's so important to have both computer check and human check to cover
if
both.
If there is only the computer check, it's not the...
No, you have to have both.
It's not...
You have to have both. You have to have computer and human. You can't have, a computer doesn't take
So some people could cheat and say it has been checked and the filter is kosher. He did it only with the computer.
It should be computer and human. Well, I mean, every computer check you have to have. Every computer check, you have to have a physical person reviewing the sheets. But yes, computer checks sometimes make mistakes. It's yeah. Anyways, okay. Other things regarding mezuzah. Many seifrim are not careful to properly wrap the mezuzah. And what do I mean by that? The halacha is that the shin that's written on the outside of the parchment is meant to remain visible to the people, to the person. Now, sometimes you have a mezuzah that has a little bit of a longer, meaning the parchment in the beginning is a little longer, so it can cover up the shin. And sometimes if he just rolls it very, very tight and very, very thin, it can also cover up the shin. So I've had this happen with numerous magim, and even after I've told them, make sure you don't do this, they do it anyways. I don't know. Again, you work so quick, you just do it out of habit. So I would have to undo his work and then, roll it properly. But it's something it doesn't hurt to mention that the shin should remain visible. Number two, if you're giving them cases, if you're not giving them the cases, then fine. But if you're giving to them the cases, they should be told to put it in the case with the shin also sticking towards you, meaning that it's in the front. The reason for this is because the shin is meant to be seen.
Is there more than a shin? Isn't it shin?
No, that's the bottom, the angel's name. Don't worry about that. Shin Shaka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you keep saying just shin.
Yeah, I'm not going to say God's name.
Oh, okay, got it. Okay.
The shin and the other letters.
Okay.
The entire word, yes. But the shin is the first one, so that would be the first one to get covered. So if the shin isn't covered, then nothing is in it. Obviously, the dollar is not going to be covered. So on this as well, it's brought down that a person should try to have transparent mezuzah cases. And the reason for this is because you're supposed to see the shin. The name of the shin. Okay?
Transparent cover.
A transparent case, yes.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a transparent case with exception to the bedroom of a couple or any other room in which people walk around unclothed. I can't imagine where people do that other than a bathroom, which doesn't need a mezuzah. But in any event, that's what's brought down. Just in those rooms you can't because of tznius, but otherwise it's meant to be seen, visible.
So all those mezuzah cases that people,
Huh?
all those fancy artistic mezuzah cases, there are thousands and millions right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's kosher. It's kosher, and I know that, people buy everything, but according to Shulchan Aruch, it's meant to be transparent, yes. If you look by 770, all the mezuzahs have a little paper wrapping. It's like a beige paper wrapping, and then it has just plastic, soft plastic. It's like they take plastic wrap of like we have a plastic table cover, and they basically cut it up and use it for a rolling.
Even outside mezuzahs that have the...
that's not a good idea for outside. That can get rained on.
Okay.
Inside.
You have glass, some of them are glass.
In 770?
Yeah.
The outside ones?
The outside.
Right. Yeah, because if they had the other ones, it would get rained on. Okay. Okay, our last halacha regarding guidelines for mezuzah checking is regarding the bracha. When you put back your mezuzahs, there are times that you're going to need to say a new bracha and times that you will not say a new bracha. It depends on how long after the checking are you putting it back on. If you're putting it back on the next day, you say a new bracha. If you're putting it back on that same day, then if there was no kashrus issue with your mezuzahs, they were all found to be kosher, then you shouldn't say another bracha. However, if he says, listen, one of them's puzzle and it's not fixable. For example, a letter became erased in a way that a teenager doesn't read it properly. All mezuzah is possible because it has to be considered. It has to be written in order, so it's gone. So you have to buy a new mezuzah. So when you buy a new mezuzah and put it up, you say a bracha, then you have that count for all the other mezuzahs.
You said there's two things.
In a case where everything was kosher, even if it's only kosher b'diavad, then you put it back up without a bracha if it's the same thing. But if one of them wasn't kosher, whether it's not kosher at all and you have to replace it, or it was not kosher but was able to be fixed, such as, for example, this happens quite often with mezuzahs in moist areas. If you Here in Tsfat, I don't know, at least in my street, the walls have a lot of moisture. They get wet in the winter. Literally, they're damp. You put your hand to the wall, have water on the wall. So, what the problem with that is that if your mezuzahs sweat, it causes the ink to begin to dissipate and spread, which causes one letter to touch another letter. So let's say the kites of the letter or the zines of the letter touches one of the top letters, the mezuzah is possible. But it's able to be fixed by simply erasing it. You're able to fix it.
That requires another bracha that's done on the same day.
Correct. That would require another bracha because the mezuzah was possible. It's like the mezuzah fell off. Mezuzah falls off, you replace it with a bracha.
And if you don't know which one is special, you mix all the mezuzahs. You know there was one or two psulim, but you don't know which one. So what will you do in that case? It says,
So you say a bracha on any
maybe
one of them, and don't
maybe
talk
one.
until you're done putting them all on.
Did you say there's a time factor involved also?
Of course, next day.
No, but if you haven't taken the wall kosher, and you're gonna put them back up,
Same day?
not that, no?
No, that's what I said. If it's the next day, you say a bracha.
To see a bracha, you put them back in the same place you put them up.
Yes. Because a day passed, yeah. It's Baruch HaShulchan, that's how we go. So it's like you took off your talis. You have a certain amount of time, it doesn't go on forever. Why do I say a bracha on a talis every morning? I took it off yesterday, I knew I was going to put it back on today. Because too much time passed. So what's the too much time? That's a big machlekes by Mizrah. That's why I said, we're stringent, like a stringent opinion the next day. With David Hashem Oiri V'Yishi. What a beautiful capital of Tehillah. This capital, Psalm 26, 27, 27, Chav is recited based on the Alter Rebbe Siddur. He is the first one to officially bring this in a Siddur.
Okay. Even
Our
the
Rebbe.
Sfardim, they didn't have it before?
Nobody had it before. David HaMelech wrote it, but nobody ever placed it by Shachris and said to say it during Elul until the Alter Rebbe did so. But it is recorded in a prior source to the Alter Rebbe. And because of this prior source, some are accustomed not to say it. Today, basically, Ashkenazim say it. It's written in Kids Shulchan Aruch and Mishnah Berurah. So all Ashkenazim have the minhag of saying this mizmor. Sfardim, I'm not exactly sure what Sfardim do, because the Chidah, when he records it, he doesn't record it specifically regarding Elul. He just records in general that it's maybe he does record regarding Elul. 1 second.
They don't say it on the Mincha. Whereas when Mincha is probably shoot it and say it.
Okay, no, the Meribah Etzbah does bring it down. The Meribah Etzbah is the Chidah. Okay, so I know by Mincha they don't say it. It's where Daven by Svari Minyan, they don't say the double down. So I don't know when they do. Right, it's two different Minhagim. Kids Shulchan Aruch they say by Ma'ariv, yeah. The Mishnah Berurah says by Mincha. Mishnah Berurah. No Ashkenazim follow the Mishnah Berurah. You got to be ma'ir them, be machzir them b'tshuva. Show them, tell them to Mishnah Berurah. Okay, so what is the prior source of the Alter Rebbe that caused such controversy? For example, if we go down here to Tzemach, no David. We don't allow David in Elul. And I don't know if they know. I don't know how learned all of them are. But to me, the Chacham certainly know. I don't know how much the average tzanzer knows of why he doesn't say it. But the reason is as follows. The prior source of the Alter Rebbe is a sefer called Chemdas Yamim, which literally means splendid days. What a beautiful sefer. What a nice name. Problem is that we don't know who wrote it. Some people say this sefer was written by none other than Nathan Ha'azati, Nathan of Azza, who was the prime pupil of Shabtai Tzvi. Shabtai Tzvi. Nathan Ha'azati. So because of this, I said, listen, we don't want to have anything to do with his custom. It's written in his book, And therefore they're opposed to saying it, and other groups also avoid saying it. Chayzim and Rabbi didn't say it. Others were accustomed not to say it because of this. Bottom line is that majority of Klal Yisrael did accept it. The Chidah writes about it, that it's Chidah writes, what is the purpose of this Mizmar? Why do we say it in Elul? It says the Yigdal Midas Harachman and Elul. It's able to go to everybody. So also the Klippas want to get. Now what are we going to accomplish if also the Klippas get Rachamim? What does it mean the Klippas get Rachamim? The Klippas say God's in the field, God loves everyone, it's so much love. We all know what happens when there's too much love. You end up like San Francisco in 1970. Right? One of the highest crime rates in the United States, in the Love Fest. Specifically in the streets of where all of the hippies and yippies, etc., hung out, they have the highest crime rates in the United States. So we have a lot of love, a lot of klippas like to come in to get some free also. So therefore we need to say Kapitul of David in order to banish the persecuting angels. And that prevents them. Now what's the connection? And then we'll figure out how does David correspond to protection of your Gimli Sarah.
13 times the name of God. 13 times the name Yud-Kevavke.
Yud-Kevavke is 13 times said in the David. 13 times. This is recorded in the Shar HaKoilo, that the Mizmor contains 13 names of Hashem corresponding to the Yom Midas Harachim. So we see that this minhag does have a very strong source, and therefore, and that's the reason, certainly if Al Rebbe brought it down, he knew how to filter things from the Chemdas Yamin that were okay, that were not okay, and if he brings it down, we definitely can't say it. Okay, that's the end of our Elul discussion. I mean, we have a few minutes, let's just begin. And Rosh Hashanah davening. We're going to do this fully next week on Rosh Hashanah davening. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go through Mitzvah Hashem, Rosh Hashanah davening, is just giving a little bit of perspective of what is the davening all about, what should be the focus of a Jew in Rosh Hashanah. How serious should one be? Should one tear up? Should one cry on Rosh Hashanah? Should one daven for physical matters? Should one daven for parnasa, for nachas, for children, grandchildren? Or should one focus on health? Or focus only on spiritual things? What should be the proper focus of Rosh Hashanah? I'm going to go through the importance of proper punctuation when davening during the Seres Mitzvah. When I say Rosh Hashanah, it means all the Seres Mitzvah. This section will go through all the davening Seres Mitzvah. And we're going to learn that during a Seres Mitzvah, you have to be especially careful in punctuation. I'm going to bring Meretz Hashem a list from the Yesod V'Sherish HaAvodah of common pronunciation mistakes that people make. And I've heard these mistakes be made even by very chashav Yidden, who I guess just didn't get used to not making these mistakes. We're going to go through the mitzvah next week. The saying of Shir Amalis Mamakim, which is said during Aseres Meitzuvah, the different changes of prayer, the changes in Kaddish, the changes in the Amidah, the various different changes of laws if they are forgotten. We're going to go through. And we're going to then start going through the order of the prayer, starting from the night of Rosh Hashanah, Ma'ariv, all the different things that are added, to Rosh Hashanah day, from Shachris to Kiyah Shofar, to Musaf, and then to Mincha. We're going to do this 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. We're going to do both days and what's said on each of those days. Okay, so this is Meretz Hashem. Next week we're going to cover
it.
Question somebody asked. The mitzvah of